4 years.
4 years. Can you believe it?
I can't. It's like it's flown by, and it's amazing how this has just kind of morphed from being in studio, the pandemic, all these crazy things going on, and now here we are 4 years later, still going strong.
And who would have thunk it?
No idea. When I said yes to be on your show once, I didn't know that would be a 4-year thing.
Yeah, you know what? I mean, the pandemic kind of broke out just about 4 years ago, and we kind of pivoted right away. We did that one show. First,
Mhm.
I interviewed you. You were launching your book at a book signing in Long Island. I was asked at
Mhm.
the last minute to interview you, and I did that. And I said, okay, she has potential. There we go. At December
Yep.
7th was that interview, the
Yep.
beginning of everything. And I have that puzzled look on my face. It was a great day. You had a great crowd. Your book came out, and do you remember that day at all?
Oh yeah, I mean it was I was actually invited there by one of our mutual friends, and she said, "Oh, there's going to be a guy here doing interviews. You should come." And so I went out not knowing what to expect, but I've learned that you say yes to possibilities when you get asked to do things. Try to make it happen. So I said
Right.
yes, and hey, I mean, it was a good reason to go out and support a good cause and meet some great people. And who would have thought that just a few months later we'd be starting a show together and a
Yeah.
pandemic would be breaking out.
And the pandemic. I remember having that first meeting at a diner. You brought your son Zachary there, and
Hmm.
he stole a couple of my French fries, which is good. We're good because we have someone that's going to talk
Are we
about
though?
it
'Cause we're
today.
still talking about it.
Well, we're going to talk about Natalie Sessions is on our show today, but I do want to wish us, a happy anniversary, 4 years, and I think that the thing that I remember and I'm proud of the most is that we bring outstanding people to the table, to the forum, to the platform, and they get to share what they do and how to empower others. Here's some pictures over the years, I guess, the last 4 years, but and there's us at BronxNet recently
Mhm.
last year. But that's what I take away: giving a platform for others to do what they do. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's like when I first shared my story of overcoming unhealthy relationships. The before I shared it, I felt so isolated and so alone that I realized I had to share it with other people. And then the more we've put out a platform for people to share as well, it's just this ripple effect of more and more people feeling heard, feeling understood, and getting to each guest sharing their message, but also even more importantly, the bigger picture of the world getting to see and hear that they are not alone in whatever they've experienced.
Right, right. Well, why don't you talk about your book real quick?
Sure. My book, Being Love Shouldn't Hurt, was a #1 new release in codependency when it was released. It is my story of overcoming the cycle of toxic relationships and really hoping to inspire people that no matter what they've experienced, they too can create something different for themselves. There is also a step-by-step workbook that goes along with it. So definitely check it out. You can go straight to my website, beingloveshouldn'thurt.com, and get a signed copy, or you can go straight to Amazon and get a copy there. Either way, definitely worth it for you or someone you know that might be struggling, wondering if it's possible for them to change. Definitely grab yourself or a friend a copy.
All right, this is Kick Unhealthy Relationships to the Curb. I'm Steve Vaccaro. That's Stephanie McPhail. We're here every Tuesday night from 6 to 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we're on some local cable stations in the tri-state area here in New York. Well, actually, our radio show is being syndicated starting next week back in Florida. So we're going to be in New York and Florida. And our cable show is going to be in Minnesota starting in about 3 weeks. So I'm talking to different cable outlets around the country. And I think it's important to get our word out either through radio, social media, and TV. So you're doing great work. Collaboratively, we're doing work together, and we bring in all these guests. So I'm so excited that we have another 4 years left in us, and maybe longer.
Hope so. Never know where the future will take us, right?
Yeah,
I'm always surprised, which is fun actually.
that's good. That's good. So our guest today is Natalie Sessions, and she does amazing work, and she's from the Texas area. So you might have bumped into her from time to time. I don't know. Have you?
Not yet. We're actually laugh because we don't live that far away from each other, and we've only spoken to each other on Zoom. So
All right.
it's funny. We're close, but the world is we're still meeting virtually and still hanging out. Collaborating with each other virtually as well. So I'm excited for her to share her message and what she brings to the table.
Well, I got my seatbelt on because two Texas women. I don't know. We'll have to see how this goes today.
Yep, don't mess with Texas.
No, no. Natalie, are you there?
I'm here. Hello. How should I say howdy?
Howdy. There we go. Howdy,
They
howdy,
say
howdy.
y'all around here.
Y'all.
Oh, yeah?
You hear me say y'all?
Stephanie, how many times have you said y'all?
Never, except for that
Okay.
once. I just said it now.
I thought you'd still say yo. You say yo?
That's more natural. I think David has really acclimated to Texas because he says y'all all the time. And I'm like,
Really?
how did you? That's so funny that you do that. It's just like it's natural to him.
So, Natalie, welcome to the show. This is Kick on Healthy Relationships to the Curb. And why don't you explain to our viewers out there the work that you do?
Sure. Yeah. Thank you so much. And happy birthday. Happy anniversary. So
Thank you. 4 years.
That's awesome. So yes, I work mostly with midlife professionals who are really struggling with, confusion about what to eat, how to eat, having, a lot of challenges, maybe starting to have challenges in midlife around their health, not having it where they want it to be. And they know that they want to get some clarity and know how to eat best to support their health, have more energy. And so I work with them, either privately or through some really dynamic group programs online and in person. So, yes.
Well, that work is so much needed. Have you pivoted during the pandemic, or have you remained consistent over the last couple of years in the work that you do?
So I started my business after the pandemic. Interestingly, side note, I actually was working for a hospital during the pandemic. So that's a whole other story.
Right.
Very interesting and challenging time for, all of us, obviously. But I had always known, like early on, I career changed into becoming a dietitian. And so I knew at that time, I ultimately always wanted to go into business for myself. And so it just happened that happened in 2021. And so I would say, just as a business owner, we constantly have to adapt, so the answer to your question is yes. I mean, even though I am a virtual based business, I really try to listen to how I can best be of service, and so that's why I'm starting to offer more things in person while I still offer the convenience of virtual programming as well, because people like both. And I think especially now, I'm probably, I'm guessing you all would agree that I think people are really craving more in person, that connection. And, we still have an appreciation, like I said, for the virtual piece, but it's a different experience to be in person.
Yeah. Stephanie, I'm sorry, Stephanie and I go back and forth with this because I'm a community-based person. I think that element is so very, very important to maintain, but also the virtual aspect is very important too now because you can reach more people. What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts, Steph?
Well, it's actually funny that you said it because I definitely feel like people are craving more in-person things, especially lately. But about a month ago, I did an in-person event with the possibility of people also doing Zoom. Actually, I mean, it was probably StreamYard as well. And I'll tell you, it was a little bit rainy that day and everybody went to Zoom. We had one person attend live. But I was laughing because I was like, but if they would have had the option, like not had the option to go on virtually, they probably still would have come in, but they were like, it's a little rainy out. I don't really feel like going out in the rain. And so everyone jumped on the virtual stage. But, it's interesting how much of a different connection there is when we do get to meet face to face and get to have the connection and the like personal conversations. Because when I've done even hanging out with my friends in New York and we've done Zoom hangouts and stuff like that, it's a very different experience because normally when you're with a group of people go off to the side and they have their little conversations and whatever, you get to know each other differently. But when you're in this kind of platform, you have to be face to face with that person the whole time. So it is it's a different level of intimacy when you're doing it virtually. I totally agree.
Absolutely.
So Natalie, what got you so interested in starting on the nutrition aspect? Like, was there, I remember as a kid, my background as I was a health educator for 18 years before I started my business. And for me, what really got me interested in health in particular was because I remember growing up with my dad with high blood pressure, and we were always worried about his high cholesterol. And my dad's side of the family, they were all from North Carolina. They were farmers. All of them had health issues of some sort or another. And so it was something that was ingrained in me to eat healthy and take care of ourselves based on us worrying about my dad, because my dad always wanted the unhealthy stuff. That was what was natural for him. So we were always trying to get him to eat healthy, to take better care of himself. Did you have an experience kind of like that where you were kind of just inspired to get more interested in health, or was it something more personal for you?
So it's a little bit of a different, and there are some similarities, but in my case, in my story, I'm first generation American of French and Italian heritage.
Oh, my
So
mom's French.
yeah, needless to say, I grew up and ingrained in me is a passion for food and eating. And, where my story is different than yours is that my family always blended. I mean, I didn't really know any differently that we could enjoy what we eat and celebrate food, and we could also be healthy. So that's how I grew up. And it wasn't until many years later, and of course, even more so as I started my business and so forth in my profession, that I realized, wow, this is different. Most people have struggled in some way or might have like more of a negative relationship with food or dieting and that sort of thing. And my journey has been so different. I had a grandmother that lived to be 100 years old. She's a huge inspiration to me. And, I just have food and health in my blood. My mom was kind of a health nut back in the day when that was not really a cool thing. I think it's more, acceptable now. And so, yeah, I'm different in that way that it was more around honoring health and also honoring and enjoying food. And in my work now, I'm helping, I'm bringing that into my work with the intuitive eating approach that I take and helping people like rediscover that or even discover their pleasure with food for the first time.
It's so funny because I'm first generation. My mom is from France directly. And so it was an interesting combination of like mom with like fancy French food that tended to be more higher fat but delicious, but quantities were different. We'd go to my European family and food was looked at very differently there.
Mm-hmm.
And then my dad's side of the family that was from North Carolina and on a farm. So it was just a very different upbringing, but interesting. It was one trying to teach the other one all the time because of that. I think you're right. I think that the Europeans and, Steve he's from Italian heritage. There's a difference in the way Europeans view food, I think in general, than how it is for Americans. What do you say, Steve?
No doubt. First of all, I did take French in high school, so I'm part of this conversation too.
No, I don't look like a
Yeah, I'm rusty.
But I think it's right. Your upbringing really dictates your food patterns, your eating habits, and the mindset that you have. I grew up with minimal funds, so it was my situation where you always try to get the cheapest food, and no matter what heritage you're from, that was the thing. And the cheapest food was normally fast food. So I work with a lot of inner city families. How would you combat that situation if funding is tight? What are some tips that you can give people out there to kind of lock into a better diet plan or a different mindset so they can eat healthier?
Right. Yeah. I mean, some immediate, tips that come to mind, to eat in a budget-friendly way are a lot of plant-based foods, vegetables, fruits, beans, some of the more wholesome foods are the least expensive. Plant-based proteins are typically less expensive than animal proteins, for example. So, that's an immediate thought that comes to mind. Also, to stretch your food dollar, just thinking about ways if there's an opportunity for a community garden or growing your own food, that's always going to be beneficial as well, if that's possible. And other ways, for budget friendly are, if you're shopping at the store to, check high and low, that's a real common tip you'll hear dietitians give is looking for the store brand or the sales, the circulars, that buying in season. Again, just kind of quickly rattling off a few tips there that hopefully are helpful to folks. So if you can even do an experiment where if you're eating out more or looking at ways you're spending, are you out buying the coffee drinks and all these things that can add up? Maybe, just eat and buy food as you normally would for a week's time and save all of your receipts and add it up at the end of the week and see, you'll learn, if there's some ways you could make some adjustments to your eating habits or your food purchases that could help you get some cost savings that way.
I don't often go out and get coffee and things like that because I think it's such a waste of money. And I also, when I do, I'm like, the food that you get out is so differently prepared than when you make it home. But I was doing something, I was out for a long time last Tuesday, and everybody was getting Starbucks coffee. And I'm like, I'm going to give myself a treat and give myself a Starbucks coffee. It was $10.
Oh my gosh.
I was like, how do people pay for this and to have this like as a normal? And I worked at Starbucks as a kid. That was my third job. So I remember even thinking then, like, people spend a lot of money on coffee, but $10 for an iced drink that was, and then of course it's higher calorie, higher sugar, all of those different things. And again, people that do that every single day and then say that there's not enough money for other things that they want. Take out $10 a day or even $10 a week on coffee is a lot.
Right. So, and it's no judgment. It's no, but doing something like that, sometimes you're not even aware, what you're doing and how you're spending on that. So the more, generally speaking, it could be argued that the more you prepare your own food, unless you really are buying some high-end, ingredients and things, you're going to be better off. You're, like you said, more in control of not only the cost, but also the nutrition as well to boost your nutrition.
And Natalie, when people go out to dinner, there's different things that are added to the food that you might not be aware of, like salt and different things that can really build up or put your diet out of whack if you do that consistently. You find that to be true?
Oh, sure. Even with packaged processed foods, that, ultra processed foods, that's the case there. It has to be shelf stable. So there's preservatives and things. So just being a savvy consumer and reading those ingredient labels. But then, yes, dining. I too believe that you can enjoy dining out and still, be a health conscious person. But again, you're not in control. So, some thoughts there are, if you can influence, where you're going out to eat, maybe looking at a menu ahead of time. Do they offer, options to, incorporate vegetables and, the things you may be already committed to in your eating plan, and not being afraid to ask questions and make reasonable, requests for modifications if you can. But yes, it's going to be hard to get away from high salt, high sodium. It depends, it depends on the kind of restaurant and eatery that it is. They may have options. Restaurants want your business. They want you to come back. So if you're being reasonable with your request, they're going to try to accommodate if they can.
Natalie, what would you say to someone that right now, I think the big issue for a lot of people is they're overwhelmed with information about what is healthy and what's not healthy. I literally just had a conversation with my friend's husband who loves to eat meat and just wants to eat meat all day long. And I said to him, I'm like, if you're, Mediterranean diet is better choice because it's high vegetable, whatever. And he's like, well, I can do keto and I can have great cholesterol and feel healthy, but he actually does have health issues. But it's interesting, the arguments that I hear from people that say that they're eating healthy. When I hear what they're eating, I'm like, oh gosh, that sounds terrible for you. How can people learn like the difference between actually what's healthy and what's someone trying to like promote some other fad diet that's going to be actually detrimental to them? Right.
This is a huge part of what I do in my work is I am helping people get clear, as I mentioned in the beginning. And so there is so much, it's overwhelming to people how much conflicting information. And so I can't tell you how many times, I mean, almost on a daily basis, I'm like, but I read this and I thought this and, so I'm like, stop searching. I'm here for you to cut through, save you time, save you money, and help you with that. So obviously in my profession, I'm keeping up with the science, I'm keeping up. And in my approach, the approach I take in my work, I call myself a non-diet dietitian. So I'm not about the restriction, very strict diets. It's more focused on, your health goals and what the food is medicine kind of approach. Mm-hmm. So I will talk through, with my clients and different, educational programs I do about what to look for, like how to be, if a particular way of eating, a diet plan, whatever it might be, is asking you to eliminate or severely restrict any one of the macronutrients, carb, protein, or fat, that's a red flag, that's a diet, that's not going to be something that, in my opinion, and lots of opinions, science backed, that's not going to be sustainable over time. So I really try to encourage, educate and then encourage, what could you do for life? How is this going to work for you for life? Or if you're going on vacation, how doable is this eating plan or this particular diet, for example? So I'm on a mission to get people, to help them end dieting and find sustainable solutions that are practical and help them, optimize their health.
Do you think there's not enough focus on like the micronutrients? I think a lot of people, when they do their research, they're focused on the macronutrients, but I wonder if there's not enough information about those micronutrients or the actual building blocks of our bodies.
I'm not sure about that. I mean, I try to help people focus more on the food. What are you going to choose? What are you going to make? And focus less on getting a little too caught up in, the actual nutrients themselves. So, if we aim for a wide variety of as many wholesome foods as possible, then ideally, then we would meet our nutritional needs, vitamins, minerals, macros, all of it. I also realize that that's an ideal situation and that for a variety of reasons, people may not be able to get the nutrition they need from their food. So again, it varies so much from person to person. There's not a one size fits all. So I think it's very important to seek out professional guidance that helps you with more personalized approach, because we all have different challenges with digestive health and so forth.
So Natalie, when you establish rapport with a new client, do you review the medical profile and history? How does that work as a dietitian and the rapport that you establish?
Absolutely. So in my process and my unique approach, we definitely do a lot of assessment. So I would definitely be doing a review of health history and what is questionnaires and all kinds of things like this, lab work, any screenings, looking at that full health and medical history to the degree that, someone's going to share with me. But the more I'm able to see, the better I can help someone, whether that be that I'm going to, I take this holistic approach. So I would certainly align in helping them. What can we do through the food, through the nutrition, through other lifestyle like sleep and stress management. And then maybe depending on their situation, I'm going to connect them to another provider that I think maybe they need some further testing, or maybe they, could benefit from a team approach essentially. So I'm all about helping someone get to the root cause, the root of what their ailments and their challenges are, so we can break those barriers, remove barriers to you achieving radiant health.
Wow. And how important is sleep for people? I mean, because I think that when you're a type A, or if you think you need to do different things, you sleep less, but for the long haul, that's not probably the right thing to do.
Yes, I speak on the subject of sleep quite a bit, and it's you want to think of it like a puzzle, so there's many different pillars, of your health. So, nutrition is huge. That influences about 80 to 90% of your overall health and well-being. But all those other ones, sleep and stress, physical activity, and so forth, are all vital. So sleep is very vital. It's getting a lot more attention. I see more coming out across my desk about sleep. And I mean, it impacts everything. You know, it impacts your appetite regulating hormones. It impacts your mood. I mean, I could go on and on. We could talk a whole hour just about sleep. So, you know, in short, to answer your question, it is extremely important. It's an extremely important part of your health.
Right. And what do you find is the most challenging aspect in the work that you do?
Gosh, I mean, I think it's my own frustration. I want to help as many people as possible not suffer, because I see people suffer what I feel is unnecessarily, struggling with these things we've been talking about. And I'm like, I can help you. Others, you know, like me can help you. So I think just, you know, it's more around the business owner, if I'm being honest, you know, just the entrepreneur journey, like ways, how can I best reach people who I know I can help? And just getting the word out. I mean, my former colleagues where I used to work, we would speak to varying size audiences. And I was the one that always wanted the big audiences. They would make, you know, most people are intimidated. I was like, no, the bigger the audience, the better, because I just enjoy that, but also just to help spread, you know, reliable, trustworthy information. So I don't know if that answers your question.
No, it definitely does. And things are bigger
mind.
in Texas, so it's good. I mean, you want bigger audience.
Bigger, better. I mean, bigger's not always better, but being able to have a big impact,
right?
So that people can preserve their health and enjoy their lives, enjoy all the things they love, and not have to suffer with health.
Right, right. And career-wise, what's one goal that stands out for you moving forward?
So I'm a big visionary. So I ultimately aspire to have a philanthropic aspect to my business. So while continuing the work that I'm doing, I hope to grow and collaborate and partner, align myself with other like-minded professionals and stakeholders who can help, you know, serve those who may otherwise not be able to be served and educated. I really feel I'm an edutainer. You know, I really like to educate and empower people with information. So that is a big goal I have as I grow my work, to be able to make it more available to those, you know, like I said, who might not normally have access.
Right. And we're just about out of time, but how can people get a hold of you?
Oh, they can visit nutritionsessions.com. That's really a great hub. Follow at Nutritions on social media. I'm on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook, but all those channels are listed there on my website. So yes, thank you.
Well, thank you very much. This has been a great half hour, Natalie, and we welcome you back to the show in the future.
Absolutely. My pleasure. I really appreciate the opportunity, and thank you for all that you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you. You take care. You take care. Wow. Another great guest. I mean,
nutrition is such an important thing to talk about. And, you know, I know we get different angles of it, but I think we can't get enough of this type of stuff, because there's a lot of people that are cutting their lives short based on misinformation that they have. And if they can be healthy for as long as possible, it helps their family. It helps them. I mean, we want people to be healthy and vibrant.
No doubt. No doubt. Well, Stephanie, thank you so very much. Enjoy the beautiful weather here in Texas, and